Hey everybody, are we on? Oh, we're good, we're on, we're good. Oh, how do I do this? Oh, there we go, that's better. Hi everybody, welcome. It's 3:30 now, 4:45 in the morning. Leslie here, Leslie Plazz, also known as Zazoo Plazz. The one, the only Zazoo Plazz. I gotta create my own fanfare. Lacking a studio band here. Okay, that's my theme song. That reminds me. Oh man, November. What is it? November 18th. It's the 17th. Yes, tomorrow is the big Pluto going into Aquarius. I'll get to that in a minute. But I remember what I just went. If my ex-husband's watching, uh, he used to he used to sing that little ditty, that little song. Because when we first moved, we built our house. Just a little story to start off. This will be fun, I promise. When we first built and moved into our house in 1997, we were so happy with our house. We just barely had furniture, and we just settled in. And some of his relatives came to visit from White Plains, the Westchester County, New York. And I think it was his cousin and her two or three, her mother, who was my father-in-law's much older sister. There was like 20 years between, almost 20 years between the oldest siblings and the youngest, which my father-in-law was second to youngest, born in 32. So anyway, so his cousin and a couple of her sons and her elderly mother showed up at our house. And my ex-husband's family is Polish. So anybody who knows Polish American, but still, the older ones are old school, like Polish National Church and all this. So anyway, so they show up and they wanted a tour. That's right. So I was so proud of my house, but I didn't know they were coming. It was one of those things. So, we take them from room to room to room to room, And later, the way my husband described it was, that they went on this little tour, and it was like do 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 do, because his cousin was like looking at all the. She's like the Calamity Jane, who everywhere she'll show up in a future book, but everywhere this woman would go, like things would be fine, and then she'd show up and we'd have a leak somewhere, or things would start to fall over. There would be somebody would knock over a wine glass and break it. So this is what happened that particular time. I had trash in my trash basket in my bathroom, and you women out there, kinds of things you throw in your trash basket. I was in my 30s. So she's looking in there, and I'm like horrified to see wrappers and stuff. Like, I don't have to go into much detail, but she looked in my trash baskets. I had like a little wicker basket with a plastic bag in it. Okay, folks, these are the things when you're going through, whatever we're going through. With these are the stupid little things that you remember from like 30 years ago, almost. I don't know. Anyway, so they left, and I told my ex-husband, because we've been through it together, and I said, I was mortified. Not, we've only been married 2 years. His family, what must they think of me? I, and this kind of crap has always happened to me. People come in my house and look at my garbage and judge me. I mean, come on. So they go through the and then he starts singing this song, kind of like the Wicked Witch, makes in The Wizard of Oz. So whenever I sing that little ditty, I'm reminded. That isn't. Let me say. I'm reminded. You don't remind. It's redundant, but you know what I mean. I go through the horror of that experience all over the heck again. Anyway, this is why I really think this is my mission in life, is to tell these stories to people. So, you know, it's the little things, folks. It's not the big things. It's the little things, right? Look at the little things, and you'll be okay. So, anyway, I was watching one of my favorite comedians, who I happen to follow, this guy from Maine, and I was laughing so hard. Bob, Bobby, Uncle Bobby, Uncle Bobby, Bob Marley. He's a great, great comedian. I think he lives in Maine. But I was watching and I needed an attitude adjustment. So I started my day watching one of his videos, and I laughed so hard. It's like SpongeBob. I think I might have hurt my laugh box. I have this sore throat, so I hope I make it through this today. But if you're gonna get a sore throat from laughing, it's the best way, right? So I got a sniffly nose, and so bear with me. I'm showing up, folks. Okay, um, so much on my mind to talk about. Where to start? Where to start? Always start with the stories, the funny stories, okay? And then go into the apocalyptic predictions after that. That's my rule of thumb. So, okay. So I've got little stories. My ex-husband, I'm going along. I'm happy in the morning. I get these texts. He but video dialed me. Fortunately, I was all into my day already, and I was in a good space. He's like, "Do you call me?" He must have butt dialed me. He's walking down the street to go pick up his car at the mechanic, where I take my car. They couldn't find anything wrong. He said his brakes were squishy, but he couldn't. The mechanic couldn't find anything wrong, so he had to bring it to the dealer, but the dealer didn't have any openings, so he had to go and make a couple towns over and make an appointment. So hopefully he'll get his brakes fixed. That's yeah. In case he's watching, yeah. I sent him a video on some guy, the car guy, or some guy on YouTube talking about smushy brakes. So, there's that. So he's talking to me while he's walking to let me know that it's 7 in the morning and he's walking to go get his car. And his breath is, it's cold, so his breath is freezing coming out of his mouth. So, okay, see you later. Good walk. Okay, so there's that. So hopefully, and then so then he texts me. He says, "Can you?" He said, "Can you talk?" And I'm thinking, no, I'm busy. All right. And he says, "Okay." So our son, who's at UConn, he says, "Well, he dropped his phone and he cracked it." And I'm thinking, that happened to me like back in 2012 or something. I dropped my phone then on my I this new levels of hilarity, folks. I dropped my phone on the concrete floor at the high school when we were at some parent thing, and I had that cracked phone for I don't know 5 years or something. And I said, you know what? He's got a cracked iPhone, but he says, oh, we can't use it. He'll figure it out. Let him figure it out. You know, this kid, these kids, they can deal with their technology. And, I think I stepped back from the situation and he's like, well, he's texting me, wants to talk. And I know if I get on the phone with him that I won't have the distance that I need, I've got to preserve my energy. So I stepped back and I thought about it and I realized that he's like, he's concerned about being a good dad, which is great, and he is a good dad. But, he, when you have kids who are 21, early 20s, it hits you differently. You start thinking about how you were with your parents. So I realized that it was his dad's birthday. My father-in-law had passed away. He passed away in 2016 in December. So it's coming up. I can't believe it's coming up on 8 years. And I flipped the situation, and I realized, oh my God, his dad, it's his dad's birthday, and he's thinking about his dad and, how his dad was with him, and for, one way, better for worse, or whatever, that was going on with him, right? And he's looking at our son, and he misses because when I was home, we would talk about these things as parents, and I realized, he did in whatever way, he values my guide, my advice and my perspective, but I'm a mom. So, I'm going to look at it differently than I'm not a guy. You know, I know my relationship with my dad and my mom, I can speak to that, but I can't speak to his relationship with his father. So all I said was, happy birthday to your dad, and you know, on his birthday, and so he got back to me. He said, thanks. He always liked you. He said, my dad always liked you, and I remember, right? His dad is a Scorpio, so we got along great. So there's that. There's a time where you can maintain your own space, and still be there for the people in your life. You can step back, give them a minute. You don't have to get back to people right away when they demand to talk to you, when they demand your energy, you know. And I know, I'm the kind of person people want to, get their claws on, and when you're in the ocean and you're sinking, you're going to grab you know, the closest life preserver, right? And sometimes that's me, because people see me floating around and, oh. So anyway, there's that. Anyway, the story portion of our report is over. Yeah, so the big news astrologically, Pluto is leaving Capricorn, where it's been for, since 2008? And it's going into Aquarius for good, in our lifetime. It's never going to go back to Capricorn. So this is like a once in a life, takes Pluto like 200 something years to go around. United States just had our Pluto return, I think 27 of Capricorn, as a country. So, when Pluto is a generational planet, and when it goes around, it transforms whatever it touches. It goes deep. It's like that machine that you used to, the farmers use to, turn the soil before they plant new seeds. That's kind of like Pluto. It goes through. It's like an egg beater, but more, deep. So get your mind out of the gutter, people. I've had to block some people from my page who I like, okay, it's sacred. My Facebook, my page and my content, it's sacred to me. And when somebody comes on and starts putting smut in my comment section, you're out of there. Maybe I'll give you, one chance and then psst, you're out of there. So that happened to me this week. I had to set my boundaries, stake my claim. Anyway, so here we are, 33rd Sunday. Every year when we lead up to Advent in the Catholic readings, I do this. I peruse the readings, I get a little food for thought, and then I add my own Zazoo flair and perspective to this because I was raised Catholic. So I say this every time in case you've never seen one of my videos. I just start talking about the Bible stuff. I'm not one of these. I'm not reborn or anything. I just, it's my foundation, my ground floor. And what I do is I like to shed new light on things that, I read all kinds of spiritual texts, but this is the one that resonates with me because I was, raised that way. And, I feel close to it. It comforts me. But I take it further. So, Daniel. Now, this is very appropriate for this week because Daniel is the prophet from the Old Testament who he I wrote down some stuff about him. Okay, he was thrown in the lion's den because he prayed to God instead of the king. He wouldn't fall down and worship the king, and there was some law. The king, like anybody caught praying to God instead of worshiping the king was going to be, dealt with, arrested or whatever. So some people, ratted Daniel out because he was on his knees thanking God and praying to God, um, or the creator, source, whatever, the Old Testament God, not that he refused to pray to the king. So some people ratted him out, threw him in, king threw him in the lion's den. Um, and but angels or whatever protected him. They no the lions' mouths were closed. They did not hurt him. Right? There were no wounds found on him. Right? So the king saw that he wasn't harmed. So he said, "This guy, he's all right. Now, get him out of here." And then the people who turned him in, they ended up getting eaten by the lions, which is very satisfying somehow. But think about it. Leo, the lion, right? So if this is an apocalyptic prophecy here, when Pluto goes in Aquarius, it's going to oppose the early degrees of Leo. And guess was born the Pluto and Leo generation? Anybody who's got anything at the early degrees of Leo, right? So if you were born then, it's going to oppose your sun. But if you're a boomer, born like between the late 30s, I think my dad's the last degrees of Pluto in Cancer. But the boomer is born from like the early 40s through the late 50s, like 58, 59, I think, something in there. And they'll be at the end. But the ones who are going to get it will be the ones born in like the mid 40s, right? They'll be at the early degrees of Pluto. than Leo, Pluto and Leo. So they're going to have an opposition, which means, you know, they're going to have a tough time. People are going to be, fighting them, opposing. They, if they're too rigid in their old ways, they're going to get pushback. And the millennials, Pluto and Scorpio, are getting a square to their Plutos. So these kids, they're going to be going up against the they're at a square to the boomers, and then Pluto is square and opposing both of those. So we Gen Xers, we're having an inconjunct, which means it's not going to affect us as much. Um, there will be sort of a discomfort, maybe, but definitely we're not in the fray. So we have an opportunity. And Pluto's going to be going through my fifth house of children and creativity and, risk taking and romance, I think. So it ought to be fun. It just said to not go to the casino too much. I'm going to feel like taking risks, but I better put my money somewhere safe where it can grow, lock it up and have some play money. Anyway, so yeah, so we're still talking about okay, I better get to the song. Yeah, so I was thinking Daniel, the song, I'm going to skim the rest of it. So maybe you can guess which song I picked for today. It's pretty obvious. But yeah, so the wise will shine brightly like stars. It's the book of Daniel. It talks about, it's sort of an apocalyptic reading in Daniel. It says that some who sleep, this will be Michael, the guardian, will arise, Archangel Michael, maybe, people. A time unsurpassed in distress since nations began. Some who sleep in dust will awake. Some will live forever, others will not have such a good time of it. The wise will shine brightly like stars and lead many to justice. That's nice. So stars, we get shining. Um, Psalm. Oh Lord, I'll skip over that. You are my inheritance. Um, so basically, good karma is coming. To if you have paid your dues, you're gonna be good. Hebrews. Yeah. So okay. So there's this apocalyptic kind of flavor leading up to the Advent season. For like I was saying for Catholics. Uh, But this time of year in general, right? Things are dying, everything's brown, right? So, we're headed into winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. So, you know, it, Mark chapter 13, no one knows when, uh, no one, this is interesting. Well, no one knows the time, of course. But it said, he's going to send out the angels, the four winds, the end of the earth to the end of the sky. The end of the earth, that's Capricorn, right? To the end of the sky is Aquarius. So maybe what they're saying is this generation will not pass away, Pisces, until all these things take place. So I'm thinking we're at the threshold, some kind of a threshold right now. Only God knows. But I'm thinking, you know, so we're still, I think when they talk about the age of Aquarius, I think that is the end of the sky. So sometime Pluto will be in Aquarius till 2044. And now 2024 is the end of Earth, right? So sometime between 2024 and 2044, maybe, these things will come to pass. Who knows? We're living in unprecedented times. The song for the week. If you're still there and you're still with me, Elton John, Daniel, right? I was going to name our youngest son Daniel, or our oldest, I don't know, because I like the song. they ended up being, other biblical names, Benjamin and Zachary. Uh, Daniel, I would always get this image. 73 it came out. January 73. I was 7. But I remember, Daniel on the plane, and I thought it said, I had no idea what the song was about. Just, it was Elton John's brother. He was on the plane and going to Spain, and he was older, his older brother, and he couldn't see or something. He was not able to see, but he could see better. I, whatever. But that totally wasn't what it was about. It's not even about his brother. Bernie Taupin wrote the song. He had read some article in Newsweek or something about a Vietnam vet, uh, and it was written from the point of view of the younger brother. Daniel was the Vietnam vet who came. He wanted to come home. He wanted to leave his small town. He fought in Vietnam, and he came home, and he got so much attention at home he couldn't relax, so he wanted to take off and go somewhere. Um, so that was he saw him waving goodbye, the red tail lights of the plane, I guess. So I thought, it's just kind of eerie. This song got to number 2 on the pop charts in the U.S., number 1 on the adult soft rock charts. Um, and it was released on his album, Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. So that's funny because Daniel was a prophet. It's like, don't throwing me in the lion's den. I'm just a piano player. I'm just delivering a message, right? Don't shoot the messenger was the saying, right? And Mercury is the messenger. I don't know, something going on there. Mercury's an Aquarius or Sag. Yeah, so that's interesting. So yeah, so I thought that was interesting. Aquarius, it's all about, it's an air sign. It's all about, um, you know, the groups, the tribes. If Capricorn was about the patriarchal, people in power, you know, corporate types, people, the very rich, the top echelon, right? So, you know, and it also rules military. So if you think about this, Daniel, he was in the war, and all he wants is to be left in peace, right? And the war is still going on in his mind, in his neighborhood, in his vicinity, you know. And so getting away from that, I thought that seemed like an appropriate theme song, you know. Uh, so one of the things, you're a star in the face of the sky. Star in the face of the sky. It's one of the lyrics. So, he looked up to this guy looked up to his older brother, you know? Uh, so he's having to say goodbye to his brother because of this war. It sheds some light on the masculine, the divine masculine, you know? And Aquarius is a masculine sign, I think. So anyway, that's some food for thought. Um, if you're like a Daniel and you have a message, that's the last thing I wanted to say. Um, yeah, if you stick to your integrity, God will protect you and you'll prosper, right? Um, yeah, so I'm going to sign off. I had one more thing to say, but I'm not going to get to say it. But till next week, Zazoo Plazz signing out. Hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Different time, same place. Take care.